Welcome to this edition of Authors in Conversation. We are headed toward the end of October, and everybody knows what happens at the end of October, October 31st. So, we are interviewing some fascinating authors who will be they'll have their books on display at the Sunshine State Book Festival, January 27th and 28th in Florida. Paranormal, that's what we're going to talk about today. Elle Ire is an award winning author of many books. You're the first author that I've talked to that's had an agent. Fist bump. Good job. How
Thank
are
you.
you? You're
I'm well,
welcome.
thanks.
Thank you for joining us for Authors in Conversation.
I
Tell
appreciate you
us
having
your books. One of the things that I was fascinated by, you said that you like to learn how to use all of the weapons that your characters use in your book. Do How does that happen? Do you learn how to use the weapons first and then you integrate them in your book?
a little of each. It's when I think I'm getting it wrong, I go out and I try to actually get some lessons. My first character was really good with a 9 millimeter, and I've never handled a gun in my life. So some women get flowers and some women get candy, but for my birthday, I got shooting lessons, and I was thrilled to get it, and found out I'm actually a pretty good shot with a 9 millimeter. The book I'm currently working on features a woman who works in an axe throwing bar. So I had to go out and try axe throwing. I am terrible at axe throwing. They are very hard to throw accurately, and I don't have the upper body strength for axe throwing. I can crack a whip, and I use that in one of my books. And I am good with throwing stars and daggers.
Okay. Elle, you write fiction, science fiction, paranormal romance featuring kick ass women who fall in love with each other. Talk to us about those characters.
Well, I write lesbian and bisexual characters, and
Okay.
inevitably, there's going to be one of each in every one of the books. Usually, the lead is bisexual, although I have flipped it and had the lead be lesbian a few times. Um, Usually, it is a pair of very strong women, but who are strong for different reasons. Maybe they're physically powerful, maybe they're magically powerful, maybe they're intellectually powerful. But it's a variety of different strengths because I want to demonstrate that being kick ass doesn't just mean literally being able to kick somebody's ass.
When did you start writing these kinds of books? How do you decide which genre you're going to be writing in? Well, first of all, how about this? Before you get there, explain to people what science fiction, paranormal romances will generally look like.
So primarily, it's going to be a science fiction, action oriented book with a romantic subplot. You can inevitably expect a pairing to occur, usually an unlikely pairing throughout the course of the story that's going to be tied somehow to whether or not the characters can succeed in their action oriented goal. In paranormal, it's going to be more of a ghost situation or a magical situation that they have to overcome. And again, with that romantic subplot. So you've got a couple of different plots that are going to be interweaving and usually dependent upon each other. One of which is going to be action oriented, and one of which is going to be emotionally or romantically tied to that plot.
So, how did you get started in this kind of writing? How young were you when you started writing?
Really, really started 7.
Because okay, so you have 9 novels, right? And you're
Right,
working on number 10.
right.
You teach school,
Yep.
and there are a lot of people that will say that they started writing after, they were had their children and careers out of the way. You have all of this going simultaneously. You have a husband, you have a career, and you are an author with an agent. How do you fit all of that in?
Um, very haphazard. It's I mean, it helps to be a teacher because I do a lot of my writing in the summer and I can write very quickly. So I can usually crank out a solid draft in about 3 months. So I do the vast majority of the heavy lifting on that in my 2 months off in the summertime. And then any other break that I have. But I do write throughout the course of the year. So every weekend, I try to get about 4,000 words in. Every night, I try to get at least one page further in whatever manuscript I'm working on. My children are grown and they are out of the house. One is about to graduate from college and the other one is job hunting. So they are not part of the distraction. And my spouse is a multi published author as well. So he gets it and is extremely supportive and understanding when I say, honey, I'm writing right now, because usually they're writing right now also.
Yeah.
And so it's a nice balance.
Well, yeah. And so the you said you started writing at 7. So what were you writing about at 7?
At 7, I was writing Star Wars fan fiction. That's what I was writing and putting together the characters that I wanted to see together, um, and giving them new adventures. And then graduated to Ninja Turtle fan fiction when I hit my college years, and eventually started writing my own stuff.
So you are so the your most recent. You'll be there at the Sunshine State Book Festival with all of your books, of course, I'm sure. And your most recent is which one?
Harsh
Harsh
reality.
reality. Harsh reality. Tell us about harsh reality.
So, harsh reality is absolutely the craziest thing I've ever done. It is Annie Gets Your Gun meets Night of the Living Dead meets Survivor. And it is really out there. We're talking about starting in the Old West with the only female sheriff in the Old West, and demons arrive on the scene, and she loses her town and is transported through time by magical means to modern day, and she gets cast as herself on a reality television show set in a recreation of the town that she lost. So she gets one more chance to defeat the demons and save the town that she lost and the woman that she loved.
How do you come up with it? Where does it come from?
I watch a lot of speculative fiction television. I read all the time. And I had this particular story. I had just gone to see the movie Cowboys and Aliens, if you remember that one. And I went to bed and I dreamed this entire thing. And I woke up the next morning and I turned to my spouse and I said, honey, I have this idea. And he thought it was crazy enough that it just might work. And I started writing it and I wrote it in about 3 months. It just came completely out in one shot. And it was, yeah, definitely the most out there story I've ever done.
And so, with your, this the Sunshine Books Festival, the tagline is bringing readers and writers together. What do your readers have to say about the works that you're doing? How long has this latest book been out?
This book came out in August, August
Okay.
2nd.
Uh-huh.
So it's pretty new. My readers usually, I mean, the feedback I get is that they really like being able to see the lesbian and bisexual characters doing something other than just romance. Because there's a lot of romance, but there isn't a lot of genre fiction beyond romance that necessarily features LGBTQ plus characters. And so I'm filling a niche that might be pretty small, but there aren't a lot of us doing this. So there aren't a lot of science fiction women loving women books. There aren't a lot of paranormal women loving women books. And so I feel like I'm filling a void that needed a few more authors doing that. There are some of us, but I know it is fairly rare.
And So of course, that is you're living in the state of Florida. That's been a
Yeah.
little controversial. How's that going for you?
Well, I write under a pen name and I try to keep my two lives pretty separate because as a teacher, that's even worse. Um, as far as my readership goes, it's not an issue. I have the people that read me and they don't they don't care where I am or where I'm hailing from. Um, as long as I keep the two lives separate, it has not been a problem for me in my day job. My entire administration knows exactly what I write and are pretty supportive as well.
And so you're writing, and your all of your books feature these very very strong women,
Correct.
and all of them are part of the LGBTQ community. All of
Correct.
them. And so, why did
Every
you
single one.
feel everyone? Why did you feel a strong desire to write from that perspective?
Well, I started writing male female romance in my science fiction, and my heart wasn't really in it. I couldn't sell it. And I was about 40 at that point, and I started to figure out that I was bisexual. And as soon as I put that into a book, the very first book I made, a bisexual lead character and a lesbian supporting role, I sold, and it got me my second agent. And when that sold, the publisher that I sold to happens to be an LGBTQ press, so they wanted everything I had, and I had written a whole bunch of partials and fulls, and I finished them out, and they bought everything, and then they bought two more on proposal as well. So they wanted what I was doing, and I wanted to keep doing it, and it kind of helped me find myself and figure myself out as well. And I got to try all these cool weapons and all these cool stunts and kind of live through my characters, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, last night the author that I interviewed helps people. Susie Baxter. She works with people in writing memoirs. So, are you hidden in these in some kind of way? Um,
Oh, there's a little bit of me in every main character for sure.
okay.
Um, they're doing all the cool stuff that I wish I had tried when I was younger, and I wish that I was more physically fit, and I wish I didn't have asthma. So they get to do all these things and actually be good at it. I get to try all these things and at least say I did that cool thing, and I can check it off my list of really bizarre things that I have tried in the name of research.
Well, that partially answers my next question, because as you talk about your characters using weapons and you taking lessons, and as you start writing these characters, do the weapons come about first, and then you go take lessons? How does that work?
Usually, yeah, I usually I'll decide what my character's primary talents are going to be. And if it's something that I've done, because I've done a lot of crazy things, then I can just go from there and use it. If it's something I haven't done, then I will go out and see if I can find it, like axe throwing. Axe throwing is a lot of fun. It's really hard. Shooting a 9mm is not as difficult, but it's scary picking up a weapon that you know could actually hurt and kill somebody. I didn't realize I would be so emotionally affected when I picked it up.
Hmm.
And I under supervision. I mean, I was in a place where they train people to use weapons.
Hmm.
But if I have an opportunity, like if it just, I stumble across a lot of things because I go to a lot of writing conferences for this kind of work. And one of the ones I was attending, there was a stunt coordinator there who was offering to teach people how to crack whips. I So I stepped up and learned how to crack a whip, and then I ended up using it. So, or if I'm taking a trip somewhere and there's an opportunity to do something weird, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to find a way to incorporate it. Like I got to go cave swimming with bats, hundreds and hundreds of bats flying overhead and an underground lake. And I got to jump in and swim around. I don't want to think in the water, but I definitely use that in one of my stories as well. So. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So say what?
Like little puppies. They look like little puppies. I mean, the big bats, they look like they have little puppy faces. Ignore the big wings and the claws and just look at the face. They're actually very cute.
Okay. All right. Okay, real to real love. Wow, that's interesting. Whew. So you were not scared. Okay, real to real love. You won. You were a Goldie Award finalist. Tell us about that book.
Sure. Actually, that was the finalist, and then this one actually won it. But I can talk about that later.
Which one? What's the name of
Real
that one? What's the name of the one that won?
That is Dead Woman's Pond, which is set in Celebration, Florida. But we don't call
Celebration,
it
Florida, where you live.
right. Right. We don't call it Celebration though. We call it Festivity in the book. But that one won the Goldie for Best Paranormal Women Loving Women Romance. And Real to Real was a finalist, and it was both the same year. That was this year. Which one do you want me to talk about?
Let's do the runner-up. Then we'll do the winner.
Sure. The runner-up is Real to Real Love, and it is basically a cruise ship romance in space. The main character has lost her spouse to a murder within the past year, and they weren't on good terms anyway. Not that she wanted her dead, but they were on the verge of breaking up to begin with. And she takes this cruise, and she meets. It's a themed cruise. It's a cruise themed for film and television stars and characters of the 20th century. So, and so they provide every guest with a hologram, an interactive and tangible hologram of a star from that era that they think will pair well with the guest's personality that they fill out a question. And so she is paired with Ricky, who is a musical comedy star from that era, who I made up. And they fall in love with each other, but they're falling in love with each other while someone is trying to murder our main character. And so they have to negotiate, navigate the love affair, but they also have to navigate who the murderer is and how to stay alive during the course of the book.
Yeah. So then your winner. Tell me about your winner.
So the winner is based on a true story set here in Celebration, Florida. We have this lake, and if you are local and you've been here for a long time, you know that the secret name of this lake is Dead Man's Pond, because back before the town was built, when they were still plotting out where things were going to go, one of the groundskeepers saw tire tracks leading into this lake. And a bunch of tourists had gone missing. And so when they dredged this lake, they didn't just find those tourists, they found a lot of cars and unfortunately a lot of victims.
Wait a minute. So that's true? That part is true?
This part is true.
You didn't make everything that up, huh?
No, I will tell you when it's not true. I will tell you when it stops being true.
Okay, thank you.
So they put up, first they lowered the speed limit and cars continued to go in the lake. Then they put up a stoplight and cars continued to go in the lake. Then they put up a 6-foot concrete wall. And in front of this wall is like an 8-foot wide planter. And then they put spotlights. And cars are still, in fact, the week before this book launched, a car hit that curb flew over the planter, cleared the 6-foot wall, and went into the lake.
What?
So, yeah, so we decided the lake must be cursed. And so this book centers around what actually is going on in the lake, and what magical forces are at work that are causing people to be drawn into the lake. I did not realize that someone was going to go into it the week it released and not make it out of the lake. So I've got mixed feelings about that release, but it's still happening. People are still trying to end up in the lake. Usually, the planter and the wall will stop them, but yeah, we still have cars going into this lake.
How is this road configured that people veer off the road into the pond?
So it's
I mean, are
World
they just
Drive.
like going so? It's what?
It's World Drive. So if you leave Disney and you're driving down World Drive, it dead ends literally in this wall and this planter, and the wall says, celebration on it. Although in my book it says festivity on it. And behind, you can't even see the lake. Behind the wall is where the lake is, and it's quite deep. And gators and all of that fun stuff. So what the authorities assume is that people are leaving the Disney area intoxicated, or they think they're on a bigger road than they are. Or they think they've already gotten on I-4, or they fall asleep at the wheel, because usually these things happen overnight, and just land on the gas pedal or something. They don't know. We don't know. But they keep going in.
Well, it sounds like that pond will forever be giving you stories. Now
Yes, I
that
knew
you've
I had to write
entered,
something,
now that you've entered the pond, there's no telling what else will come out of there.
right?
So how does the story go now? The story that you've written that won the award.
So the story is centered around a construction worker who is working on the apartment complex that is now fully built, but wasn't when I wrote it, about a block away from the pond. And her girlfriend, who is the town famous psychic, and we do have a famous psychic here, different name, but we do have one. So they team up to solve when the construction workers truck almost ends up in the pond. They team up to solve the mystery, and magical hijinks and a romance ensue.
That's all I get.
That's all you get, because I'm not going to give spoilers. It's a 3-book series. You're going to have to read it to get the answer.
So you've already written 3?
They're all out. Yeah.
Really? So
Mhm.
why do you think, for those who want to write, who want to, is it the fact that you just have to, like, some people can sing and dance and some people can play certain sports? Do you think that you just have to have the gift for this, or can anybody write or teach themselves or be taught to write this quickly? Because it doesn't sound. When do you have writer's block?
Oh, I have it. I definitely have it. But fortunately, I never have it at the same time as my spouse. And so we are usually able to drag each other out of it by reminding us, hey, you've done this before. You can do this again. Sit down and start typing. Um, I mean, I don't want to give the unpopular answer. I think you have to
Okay,
have
okay. What's
some.
the unpopular answer?
The unpopular answer is that yeah, there's some kind of gift involved. Um, I think you need something. I think you need, well, okay. I think you need to be an avid reader, for one thing. I think you need
Mhm.
to fill your mind with other people's well written work in whatever area that you want to write in. And then I think you have to have a fairly imaginative personality to take what you've pulled into your brain and turn it into something different. Beyond that, you can certainly be taught plot structure and grammar and mechanics and how to make a twist and character development and good dialogue. But I think the imaginative part, you need a little bit that you're born with, and then you need to nurture it. You need to nurture the heck out of it with all the reading that you can possibly do.
Hey, as you were saying that about reading other people's work, there may be some people think that, well, I don't want to read other people's work because I don't want to copy what they've written.
I think you have to, and I think the risk is so minimal. I've heard that. I've absolutely heard that, and I don't agree with it. And I mean, obviously, that's you're welcome to your opinion, but I think you need to read work in the genre you're writing. One thing so that you know what's been done to death, and you don't do it again.
Mm.
And one and another so that you understand what is kind of selling right now or is becoming more popular, and also so that you can pick up on what's acceptable to say and what's not acceptable to say. I run into a lot of writers who read, but they read nothing but the classics. And what you could say 50 years ago is not the same thing that you can say now in a lot of areas. And yet you can get away with a lot of other things that you couldn't get away with 50 years ago. Like what I write is would have been a lot less easy to publish 50 years ago. But I think you have to read recent work and you have to read work in the genre you want to write just to understand how it works. What are the expectations? What are the reader expectations?
So, Elle, considering that there were not a lot of books written um, in the genre that you've written in with same sex relationships with women, who were you reading?
So I read all of the genres I write, but separately. And then I took
Okay.
what I learned from all of them and put them together. So there is a healthy um, number of women loving women fiction coming out. So lesbian romance and bisexual romance, you can find quite a bit of that. And I read tons of science fiction all through my youth and all I still read it all the time. And I read a lot of urban fantasy and paranormal, and I still do. So I kind of took what I learned from those three things, and then I started mixing and matching and turning it the way I wanted to see it done.
So, in paranormal, is this something that gets more attention this time of year?
I think so. I know that my publisher is pushing sales for, I think they're doing all the paranormal stuff right now, and they're doing, no, other way around. They're doing fantasy right now, and they're doing paranormal for Halloween weekend. So all of their books that are in those categories are dramatically discounted for 3 days each, including mine. So if you want to pick them up, there they are. But definitely, I've seen an uptick in people looking at my work and purchasing my work during October. It makes sense. I know that Dead Woman's Pond came out in, I want to say it came out in November, but that was close enough of last year.
So, you're going to be bringing these books to the Sunshine State Book Festival 2023, January 27th and 28th. Um, what do your 27th, 28th, it's going to be at the Trinity United Methodist Church. What do you hear from your readers when you interact with them, when you're talking to them about what you've done or what you're doing?
Usually it's along the lines of, oh, you have combined the things that I like to read, but you put them in one book. And that's really, I love to hear that. Or I never saw a science fiction book with a lesbian main character before. That's so cool. Or oh, I have a friend who would love this. Or my daughter just came out and she's looking for something to kind of help her through the process. This is perfect for her. I get that a lot, and it makes me feel really good.
All right, excellent. Elle Ire, who is an award winning author, she is one of the authors that are going to be attending and selling and there for you to meet at the Sunshine State Book Festival. We're interviewing several of these authors. If you have not seen the previous interviews, I invite you to do that. You can watch them either on LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel, or on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe. I do appreciate you getting home from school after a long day with those little precious people. What grade do you
Yes.
teach? What
I
grade?
teach 6th grade. Yes.
Which one?
6th.
Oh, yeah, they're precious.
They are actually. They're enough to have not figured it all out yet, but they're still in middle school, so you can have an entire conversation with them. That's my favorite grade so far. I've taught 6, 7, 8, and 9, and I love teaching 6th grade.
Oh, that's wonderful. And thank you for what you do in helping to shape the minds of our next generation, teachers. And my heart goes out to the families in St. Louis. And um,
Yeah.
my heart goes out to families and who have children that are in school, who take their children to school every day and think they've dropped them off at a safe place or they've gotten on a bus and headed to a safe place. So my prayers are with all of you, and I thank you for what you continue to do to help teach our children, help to shape the minds of the next generation. And congratulations to you on the awards that you've received for the books that you have written. And I look forward to meeting you in person in January.
Likewise, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It's really a great experience.
Excellent. Glad you enjoyed it. Glad you could do it. And I thank all of you for watching Authors in Conversation. We will be here tomorrow for more of these spectacular interviews. It's an opportunity for you to meet the humans behind the pages. I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Make it a fantastic moment. We'll see you next time.